heroism. It's the pursuit of two ideals, excellence and a higher purpose. This noble mission is not just found in Hollywood. It's a game changer for businesses devoted to it. Almost all business owners launch their company to make a difference in the world around them. Join us on the Heroic Experience as we talk with business owners, senior leaders, and established entrepreneurs so that you too can elevate your business to heroic success. Now, here's your host, John D. Hanson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Heroic Experience. We are proudly sponsored by Kaufman Media. Digital signage, it's everywhere, more often than you might think. Check out their cool digital signage solutions and far more at their website, kaufmanmedia.com. That's spelled COFFMAN media.com. Happy to have Greg Kihlstrom, principal at GK5A and host of the Agile Brand Podcast, as our guest this morning. Greg, we start off the first segment with 2-3 wow client stories, just people that may not have heard of you. They encountered your agency, and they are so glad they did. Thank you for being a guest on our show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, so what's the story that just really jumps to your mind of a client that was so happy they worked with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few that come to mind, and what I often find is that I get hired to do fairly technical work with clients, but I end up working a lot instead of just on the technical components.
Yeah.
I work a lot on the people and process parts of it as well, because you really can't have success in one area without success in the others.
Right.
So, one that comes to mind is, I was working with let's say small, mid-sized logistics company, and working with them on some marketing and customer experience efforts, and having a good time setting up some programs there and everything. But we kept kind of running into some roadblocks as far as everyone really understanding the purpose of why we were doing things. So in other words, we were doing what we knew how to do,
mm-hmm.
and moving along, setting up some of the frameworks and all those kinds of things. But internally, there was a lot of questions about, well, why are we, is this going to directly translate to sales? Is this, what's the ROI of this directly? And so what we ended up doing, and what translated into some really great results, is we started forming a task force internally from people across all areas of the organization to have basically a customer experience steering committee. And, this is a 100 person company, so not a huge multinational or anything, but had people from these different practice areas really get together, talk about what does customer experience mean
right.
within this organization, and start implementing things. And what we found was, not only was our output better, but everyone actually got a lot more aligned. They got a lot more motivated in their jobs.
Yeah.
And, I have a very happy client in that as well.
Yeah. Customer experience, I didn't even know it was called that several years ago when I first got into that world. And once I did, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for, because I have strengths in customer service, but I knew it always went beyond that, because it's about relationships. Really, at the end of the day, it's the most fundamental part of an organization, unless you only work with technology solely. And I don't know of any companies that do that. You have to be interacting with others. Is there another case study or a story that comes to mind, Greg? That's a great one, because people think of technology often, and then, well, there's always those people and processes that are more important or help the technology go that much farther. Is there another story you can think of?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is for a much larger company. I work with a pretty wide range of types of organizations. So, this is for a Fortune 100 that I'm currently working with.
Okay.
I got brought in as part of a team to do so. I will just confess, I like playing with the most expensive toys and doing all the cool MarTech stuff. I have a marketing background in addition to customer experience. So this is like my dream gig as far as doing some really, really cool stuff. So, worked with leadership to create a strategy and, create some really, a really great plan over the next few years to implement something. But similar to the previous example, when we started working with some of the people that were going to be implementing this, one or two rungs down in the org chart, so to speak, we started hitting resistance because, as we all know, nobody loves change,
right.
Especially when they don't understand that it's going to benefit them, right?
Right.
So, what we started doing was, again, we had this great plan, but then we really we paused that plan for a little bit, and we just said, listen, we've got to get the people on the ground involved in not only designing this, but helping us think through and being a part, not even just feeling like they're a part of it, but being a part of the solution. And sure enough, we're moving, we're moving along right now where we were almost at a standstill, a few months ago because of, again, people, their job was going to change and they didn't really feel like they had any control over it. Now they're part of the solution. There's still anxiety because change is always, is always a little bit scary, even if it's good change. But getting them involved is so critical.
I circled that word, involvement, and buy-in kind of goes along with that. So our show is geared towards business owners, executives, business leaders, established entrepreneurs, Greg. And can you speak on that involvement piece? Because it doesn't matter, in my opinion, and I think your research would back this up. I don't think it matters what size company you're in or own or manage or are part of as a team member. Having people involved in the process helps with buy-in, but it also helps with just getting more done in a more efficient way. Would you agree with that, and why so?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the easiest way to say it is it comes down to motivation, right? So when we're motivated by I'm going to get in trouble or I've got to file the TPS report to use the Office Space reference, or to or by, hey, I might lose my job, and so that's a fear factor kind of thing. Like, that is just not as motivating as, wow, I'm excited about what I'm doing, or I have some stake in the success of this, and learning on the job and things like that. And so leaders, and I know this, I owned a marketing agency for a number of years before I sold it. Managed, we were up to 30 people max. So, managed quite a few people. And I'll confess, I did it the wrong way as much as I did it the right way. When I did it very top down, like prescriptive processes, we were efficient to a point, but we didn't do great work all the time because, everyone was just kind of painting to the line. When I gave a little more freedom and people had a little more leeway and creativity in how they solved the problem, we got better results. We had happier clients, just all of those things. So yes, absolutely for leaders out there listening, learn to, there's going to be requirements that have to be met, but when you give people a little bit of autonomy and creativity and just, put some, have some stake in the, in the outcome, you're going to get so much better results.
Awesome. Well, we are up against our first break. Time flies. I'm looking forward to coming back to the second segment, my favorite one, where we get to hear Greg's story. So join us back after the break on The Heroic Experience. We'll talk with Greg and hear his story.
Inspire, influence, and connect your audience with digital signage. Kaufman Media offers customizable digital signage solutions designed to meet your company's specific goals. Whether you need digital menu boards for your quick service restaurant, digital displays for marketing in your retail stores, or wayfinding and unified communications for your schools, your corporations, or your healthcare facility, our customizable, affordable options and proven experience make us the only partner you'll need for your next digital signage project. Visit kaufmanmedia.com today to learn more. That's COFFMAN media.com.
Would you buy a car from a dealer without a test drive first? For your business, a consulting partner is even more important. Accelerated Revenue is excited to announce the Take Us for a Test Drive event. Receive 2 exclusive workshops on customer experience and winning culture, a customized culture snapshot, and a leadership strategy session worth over $10,000, all in for just $2,500. Best of all, when you onboard our consulting team, we'll credit you the entire $2,500. Spots are limited, so visit our website today at accrev.com/test drive.
Check out John's worldwide selling book, Wow Your Customers, 7 Ways to World-Class Service on Amazon. Now, once again, here's John.
Welcome back to the Heroic Experience. We are grateful to be sponsored by Kaufman Media. You know, digital signage, it's part of our lives. It's all around us. You may not even be aware how much it influences and communicates with us, whether you're inside a company or outside of it. Check out Kaufman Media's website to learn about how they can help your company communicate more effectively through digital signage. Check out kaufmanmedia.com. That's spelled COFFMAN media.com. Happy to have Greg Kihlstrom, principal of GK5A and host of the Agile Brand Podcast, as our guest today. Like I said, Greg, this is our favorite segment, at least mine anyways, because I get to hear people's stories. So go back as far as you'd like. We'd like to hear what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go back. Well, I'll go back right to the beginning, actually. So, I think an important thing to note. So my dad was, as long as I was alive, was always an entrepreneur himself. So he owned his own company, worked out of the house, solopreneur, so to speak. He had at a few points he had 1 or 2 employees, but so I kind of grew up with this mindset. I actually thought it was weird when I was very young. I thought it was weird when other kids described their parents had 2 weeks vacation and all this other stuff. I was used to a very different lifestyle, and my dad worked a lot and he traveled for work, but it was just a very different setup than a 9 to 5.
Right.
So fast forward several years, I got a couple jobs straight out of college, but my second job out of college, I worked for a startup back at the beginning of the internet 1.0 back in the early 2000s. I, as many other people in that era, worked for a startup. That startup went kind of grew really quickly, then went bust, and so I found myself laid off with 50 of my closest coworkers on a day, and I made this decision where I didn't want to go through that process again, and I didn't think it was I didn't think I needed to do that again. Growing up the way that I did, there was a comfortability there about kind of striking out on my own. So I started freelancing for a bit. I met great people at that startup and helped kind of kickstart my network, and then I got so busy that I ended up really either having to turn away work or try to grow that freelance business into something larger, which is what I did. So I started a marketing agency called Carousel 30 in the early 2000s. And, I grew that and I sold it about 14 years later. And where I had my third, I guess, full-time job, my third day job, I went to work for the agency that acquired my company for a bit, and kind of remembered why I liked to be nothing against the company, they were great people, but I remembered why I liked being an entrepreneur. So I stayed there for a bit and then struck back on my own to do more consulting.
Gotcha. And when did you make that shift back, so to speak? Or not back, but going back to your entrepreneurial roots, so to speak. What year was that where you went to that freelance consulting then?
Yeah, so 2019, I made the full switch back, and so I'd had the marketing and digital experience and all that background, and really that's when I really switched to thinking more and more about customer experience, and I think the big reason for me was, as a marketer, doing branding, doing websites, doing all manner of things like that, I kept running into this challenge where, I thought my team did an amazing job in, making a brand, building a website, digital experience, all of that stuff. But if the product or service that we were advertising or marketing wasn't phenomenal and had a phenomenal customer experience, we can make the best ad or marketing platform in the world, but there's nothing we could do about that. And so it kind of got me just fascinated with, okay, well, let me take a step back and look at that, and what can be done to really improve the customer experience. And there's many people working in the CX space for decades that are like, yeah, we've been doing this for years, and I totally get that. It was much as you mentioned earlier in the show. It was relatively new to me as even a term, and I knew about customer service and customer support and all those kinds of things.
Right.
But and then I guess to take a step further is what I quickly realized learning more about CX was, if the employees delivering those products and services, even designing products, or let alone frontline employees, if they're not happy and motivated and engaged, how in the world are you going to deliver a great customer experience? So it kind of brought me, that's where it kind of came to that people and processes part that I mentioned earlier, is it's got to all tie together.
Yeah. And I know you've written at least one, if not two books, and there's one book that I enjoyed so much. I got a copy for myself. I keep it on my office bookshelf. It has limited space. So if your book has made it to the bookshelf, it is one of my treasured reads. So
nice.
The black cover with the pink lettering, it's just so striking, that book on the customer experience. But what I really enjoyed about it, Greg, was that it wasn't just theoretical. It was, and it wasn't just a deep dive into data. It really blended both worlds, where there was good data, good processes, but still communicated to me in a way that was not so much story-driven, but it was about the relationships that are a part of it. I thought it just had such a great blend. When did that book idea come to you, and how long of a project was that for you to complete?
Yeah, so the book is called The Center of Experience, and to be honest, so I've written a few books. I actually just released my eighth at the beginning of this year, and I'm working on 9. I gotta say, that book, Center of Experience, actually happened very quickly. I was it was one of those things where I was very actively working on a couple, and this is what I write a fair amount, and my whole process of writing books, I try to make it easy on myself to do it, but I was doing a lot of work with clients, which inspires what I write.
Sure.
And it was just coming so quickly that I had to kind of put it together, and it probably has the most illustrations of things. I always find visuals really can help people wrap their heads around things a lot more quickly than words. So it was very visual heavy. But yeah, I would say probably 3 or 4 months I really put all of that together, and it was based on a lot of prior thinking and client work and stuff like that. But I appreciate the your thoughts and feedback on that, because I really did. I feel like there's been a lot of writing about that customer experience is important and things like that. And I'm totally obviously bought into the premise of that, and I can probably rattle off some figures and percentages and all that stuff. But I feel like that part, it needs to continue, and there's lots of great continuing research on that and how it's changing. But I didn't need to write another one of those books. I really felt like what I needed to write was how to actually turn some of these things into practical applications. And that's where I felt like the literature was a bit lacking in, we get it, but what do we do about it? Yeah. Excellent. Well, we are up against another break, and I'm really looking forward to diving into titles of your books, best way to contact, things you've got going on, the podcast. We'll get all that to the third segment. If you enjoy listening to The Heroic Experience, you can not only find it on our website, accrev.com, but you can find it on Spotify, Podbean, our Accelerated Revenue YouTube channel, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. However you like to listen, keep tuning in so we can elevate your business to heroic success.
Did you know that 70% of U.S. residents 12 and older recall seeing digital signage in the past week? Digital signage provides a 35% reduction in perceived wait time with a 30% increase in a customer's in-store browsing time. Kaufman Media offers customizable digital signage solutions designed to meet your company's specific goals. Christina said,
"We love our digital signage. The software is easy to use and we can publish content in minutes. It allows for every department to be seen and have a voice."
Visit kaufmanmedia.com today to learn more. That's COFFMAN media.com.
Attention event planners. Is your company or association planning a conference, seminar, or staff retreat? Are you looking for fresh ideas on high-demand topics like customer experience, leadership, empathy, customer service, earning and keeping trust, and more? Then you need to book John D. Hansen as your next speaker. Brooke said,
"Great presentation. John's concepts help shift my thinking. A good fit for my life right now."
read more testimonials, discover John's full list of speaking topics, check out pricing and more on our website, accrev.com/keynote.
Would you like to be a guest on the Heroic Experience? Contact us at john.hansen@accrev.com. Now, once again, here's John.
Welcome back to the Heroic Experience. We're grateful to be sponsored by Kaufman Media. Check out their digital signage solutions and far more on their website, kaufmanmedia.com. That's spelled COFFMAN media.com. Greg Kihlstrom, the principal at GK5A and the host of the Agile Brand Podcast, is our guest today. And we finished the last segment, Greg, talking about books. I would love for you to kind of walk through the books you've written, the one you're working on, places people can find them. Share with us some of the titles you've written, why you wrote them, and then what you're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the second book that I wrote is called The Agile Brand, and I named my podcast after it as well. So, that's something, the branding and marketing world, it's always near and dear to my heart, even though I work a lot in a lot of other spaces now as well. But, that really started me on, I wrote a few books with the word Agile in the title.
Okay.
And while I'm an Agile coach and, have some certifications in those areas, I always look at that as, applying Agile in a broader sense. And, I think people can get religious with some of these methodologies and,
Sure.
and approaches and stuff like that. But, I think it is important that organizations be adaptive and really be forward-thinking as far as how they manage change. So a lot of my writing is about that. I think two really relevant books to the conversation today. So Center of Experience, which we mentioned a little bit ago, and the most recent book that I published is called Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience. And so what I do there, I take some of the thoughts in the Center of Experience a bit further. That Center of Experience was focused on both customer and employee experience. With the most recent one, I focus a little bit more on customer experience. And also another thing that I found missing in the literature, so to speak, was really how to measure and determine ROI with customer experience efforts. Again, I think everyone's bought into the premise, but it's often hard for executives to really buy into or invest in customer experience.
Right.
So it's I wanted to write something, and I teach a course for Association of National Advertisers on that topic as well. So it's based on a lot of thoughts from the book as well.
Yeah.
And then the book that I'm currently working on is going back a little bit more to marketing and MarTech and related to what I call first-party data strategy, which, there's it's a whole other topic we could talk about another day, but
right.
With data privacy and cookie deprecation and really just a move to understanding customers better, personalizing things better for customers, I wanted to write something that really kind of gives people a full understanding of what they need to do in line with that. And so the title's a little TBD at this point, so it's going to come out later this year. But
Gotcha.
It's really all around that, that customer first thinking when it comes to data and personalization and things like that.
Right, while balancing privacy too, because we know how volatile that kind of data gathering to personalize, and people like it to be convenient, but they don't want to give away their firstborn child's information. That world is so delicate. Your podcast, the Agile Brand Podcast, where can people find that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find everything on my website. It's gregkihlstrom.com. And Agile Brand, it's also available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, all the major podcast channels. So I do 2 shows a week. And I talk with really a variety, everything from Fortune 500 execs to startup co-founders to entrepreneurs and authors and experts. So really kind of a wide variety, but always talking about how executives, leaders, and owners manage and adapt to change in their businesses.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you mentioned, and that is that the customer experience is if it's not mainstream, it's awfully darn close. What would you say, Greg, is kind of one of your differentiators in the space of customer experience?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the people, process, and technology conversation, and I think it's where I excel is I guess I have a broad amount of experience, and so I can speak tech. I understand some of the employee experience components, and,
right.
and I also understand the implementation. And so, where I can really play a strong role as a consultant is to really tie all of those things together and be practical and pragmatic about, okay, yes, this is going to be cool when it's implemented, but how are we going to step back and actually create a process to get it from an idea to actual implementation? And I think that takes. There's a lot of specialists that know their areas,
right.
Very deeply. I think my experience is a bit more broad, and I use that to my advantage.
Yeah, certainly, because a strategy is great, and then if you can apply like next best steps to break down that overall strategy, kind of the macro then to the micro level, if you're able to do that, that enables one person to be able to get farther with an idea, and I can see that being of value. What would you say has been one of the most interesting industries you've served over the years, Greg?
Yeah, so I'm drawn to the complicated ones. So
okay.
I would say financial services. I've worked in healthcare as well, which is another highly regulated one. But I would say I'm drawn to financial services for some. I mean, I like money, I guess, but it's not about that. It's about the challenge and the the just solving complex problems within constraints, right? And so I think everybody's, to your point, dealing with data privacy issues regardless of the industry that they deal with, but there are some that have even more constraints on them, and I think being creative within those constraints, and sometimes small organizations have their own types of constraints. I've worked with small credit unions. I've worked with very large banks and investment firms. So every type of organization has their own opportunities as well as challenges, and so I like working at several different levels, and just I'm constantly wanting to learn, and I'm motivated by learning and just doing new things, and ideally doing some things for the first time.
Yeah. So we got about a minute left. Time just flies. I always enjoy these conversations. I learned so much too. What would you say, Greg, after you've had this great breadth of experience, small, large companies, different industries, customer experience, employee experience, the tech side, marketing, what is the thing that you've found that's kind of most rewarding about the experiences that you've had working with companies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's when I see someone's motivation change, I think that's the most rewarding thing. I mean, I like doing new and innovative things and everything, but really what ends up sticking with me is when someone turned from a skeptic to a to a believer, so to speak, and really got on board with the change and the idea and the strategy. I think that's really the most rewarding thing. I mean, as much as I'm often a solo consultant and things like that, but I thrive working with strong teams. And I think of my clients as teams. I often work with other larger teams, even as a consultant. But I think it's when you've got a strong team, regardless of who hires them and where they sit.
Yeah.
I think that's just such a rewarding experience.
Sure would be. Well, thank you for being our guest today, Greg. Time flies as always. We look forward to having you back again for our next episode of The Heroic Experience. We are here to elevate your business to heroic success. We'll see you next time.
This has been The Heroic Experience. To learn how your business can be profitable and heroic, visit ACCREV.com. For access to free weekly content, subscribe to the Accelerated Revenue YouTube channel and follow John D. Hanson on LinkedIn. To listen to archived shows, find them on the Accelerated Revenue website under the Resources tab, ACCREV.com.